everybody, and welcome to the DraftKings wide receiver analysis for Week 9. I'm Big Italy 42 here, talking about some of my favorite options for cash games, GPPs, and some cheap options here as well. Starting off with the same two guys I said I was on in the FanDuel article. I'll kind of keep this short and sweet for you guys. If you're looking for floor, these are the guys that I'm on. If we're talking relative to salary, Davante Adams, easily my favorite play on DraftKings, $5,900 against the Colts. Team total of 30.5, highest on the slate. Might be the highest we've seen all season, actually, I believe. I'll have to check that, but I think it's the first 30-plus total we've seen. So, Green Bay expected to be in another shootout there at home. Randall Cobb, even if he does go, looks like he may be limited. He still didn't play last week, still hasn't participated fully in practice this week. So, regardless of his status, Davante Adams, 30 targets over the last 2 weeks, 25 catches. He's a terrific volume play, and he's got upside. I mean, scored 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. He certainly has potential to hit that 100-yard bonus, full PPR on DraftKings. I think he's a no-brainer cash game play for you here. If you're going to be paying up, Antonio Brown is the guy that I want. Obviously, no Julio Jones or Mike Evans. Odell Beckham in a matchup that I'm not particularly fond of for cash games, and he's shown plenty of inconsistency himself. But Antonio Brown, with Ben Roethlisberger potentially back, facing a Ravens team that has just been gashed by number one wide receivers this year. Brown, obviously, highest projected wide receiver in our model. In our lineup optimizer, and for good reason. I mean, he's still the best wide receiver in the game, with apologies to my favorite Mike Evans. But either way, we know that Antonio Brown, the type of floor he has, and he's managed to get it done regardless of who's under center. So with Ben Roethlisberger supposed to be back this week, this is a division race that's tighter than it probably should be. I mean, me personally, as a Bengals fan, the Bengals should not be as close as they are. So the Steelers need to still win. They need to win games like this against the Ravens. Huge division game. And you expect they're going to rely on Brown, rely on Le'Veon Bell as their top options, as they rightfully should in this matchup. GPP wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton. Last week, recency bias could keep people off him. 1 catch for 20 yards last week. Not likely that he was even close to 100% in that one. It didn't seem like he was. But team total of 23.5, 7-point underdogs for the Colts. This is a Packers team that ranks 25th in the league against number 1 in wide receivers. Despite last week's debacle, I mentioned the 1 catch for 20 yards in that one. T.Y. Hilton, despite that terrible performance in that game here on just a few targets, he had 6 targets in that one. Just couldn't get it done last week. He just didn't look right. And this is a guy who's still among the league leaders in targets, 82, tied for 3rd. Packers should and probably will get up big and get up early in this one, forcing Andrew Luck to throw the ball a ton. And I'm looking at him to get his number 1 wide receiver involved here. We've seen T.Y. Hilton have some big-time games so far this season. Like I said, he's a guy who gets a ton of volume, a ton of looks. I mean, you look at what he's done recently. He had that 7 for 133 and a touchdown against Tennessee, 10 for 171 and a touchdown against Chicago, 8 for 174 and a touchdown against San Diego. This is a guy who scored in 4 of 7 games so far. So he certainly has upside. Like I said, there's not a better game flow scenario, potentially, for an elite duo of Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton than what we are probably going to see in Lambeau Field this week, another shootout. So highest total in the week by far in this game. Colts, obviously, their team total not quite as high, but you expect they're going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. And with Hilton looking like he is 100% again, or very close to it, this is certainly a guy you want to get yourself some exposure to in your GPPs. Full practice for him on Thursday, so that's certainly a encouraging sign. Corey Coleman, next up. He's $4,500 on DraftKings. This is a guy who was tremendous in his first 2 games before breaking his hands. You look at his last game, obviously, was that big game. I mentioned how the Ravens have been gashed by top receivers. Corey Coleman, in his last game that he played, 5 for 104 and 2 touchdowns against them on 8 targets. 2 for 69 on 5 targets against Philly in his first game. He's just crazy cheap here. You know the Cowboys are going to score points. You know the Cowboys are going to get ahead. Corey Coleman is a much, much better, more talented receiver than Terrell Pryor. And there's no way you can convince me otherwise. Corey Coleman's a guy that I'm excited about playing this week. He's $4,500 on DraftKings, 56 on FanDuel if you're interested there. But I love that cheap price tag. I know he has upside. And the Browns with Cody Kessler under center, not Josh McCown. That was just announced a little bit ago. This is a team that going to be behind. They're going to need to be throwing. And Corey Coleman looks to be 100% healthy and definitely ready to contribute right away. So I'm excited about his potential this week. Value wide receivers. One more guy that I had already mentioned, Brian Quick, $400 above minimum. Not a sexy pick, not a guy that you're really excited about playing here, but for $400 above the minimum, he's a guy who's gotten some red zone looks. The Rams, I'm not expecting they're going to have much success on the ground against the Panthers, who rank 5th in the league against the run. So this is a team that's going to be airing the ball out, and for some reason, Case Keenum's still under center, but he loves to throw the ball a ton. He's going to have to in this game. And it's a good matchup against the Panthers defense that is just awful against the pass. So Brian Quick, one of those guys, you kind of cringe as you put him into your lineups, but he's a guy that I'm not going to be overlooking at that cheap price tag. Last up, Quincy Enunwa for the New York Jets, $5,100 against the Dolphins. Team total just under 21 points here. And over the last 2 weeks, Enunwa has just 2 less targets than Brandon Marshall. Only 6 catches, but he's got 166 yards and 2 touchdowns there. The volume of catches is partially due to the fact that quarterback play has been very, very poor for the Jets, but does have 15 targets over those 2 weeks, like I mentioned. So this is a Dolphins team that's 10th against the pass. You expect Matt Forte probably going to have more success than the passing game will, but if you need a cheap guy, Enunwa's a guy who seems locked into that 6 to 8 target range each week as the number 2 to Brandon Marshall. And, you know, if the Dolphins are able to have some success against this Jets defense, then they're going to be looking for guys like Enunwa to make some big plays. And I'm still a fan of him as the cheap option. That's going to wrap things up here. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.